This is Pet Life Radio. Let's talk pets.
Hello. You're listening to Animal Party on Pet Life Radio. And I'm sitting here ready to go on the air in the studio. All the equipment, the lights, everything, the wires. And I neglected to shut my office door. And just as I start the show, two of my cats climb onto the desk. Not good. They may make themselves heard during the show. I think they know that we're doing a cat show today. Somehow, just like they know when you're going to take them to the vet, they know that the great, the wonderful, the terrific author of Kittens for Dummies and so many others, so many, cat wrangling made easy, so many books about cats, is Dusty Rainbolt. So welcome to the show, Dusty.
Well, thank you for having me, Deb. It's wonderful to be back talking with you and your audience.
I told people you were coming on the show. I posted, and so we had listeners send in their cat questions. And the first one we're going to tackle is from a lady who is elderly, has had cats all her life, has never had a fat cat before, ever. Her name is Margaret, and she calls her cat Kitty Cat, but it does have a name. I'm trying to find the name now in my papers. Well, of course, I can't find the cat's name right now. But she says she never calls it by its name. Lucy. Lucy's the cat's name. She never calls it Lucy. She calls it Kitty Cat. Anyway, the cat is 18 pounds. She feeds it a quarter or a third of a cup, depending on the instructions on the food bag. She used to buy Iams. Now she buys Purina One. Both are, the blends she buys are designed for overweight, indoor, elderly cats. She says she's doing everything she can. Why is her cat so fat? Margaret wants to know.
Well, there could be a million reasons why Lucy or Kitty Cat is a little on the plump side. Did she say anything about taking Kitty Cat to the vet?
She's been to the vet. She does the regular checkups. Everything there is good. And the cat's 18 pounds. The cat is a domestic short-haired calico. The cat spends a lot of time under the bed, doesn't really greet guests or anything like that. It's sort of a shy cat, but is really affectionate, warm, loving, active when no one's around, when it's just the owner.
Mm-hmm.
And the owner's a very calm, elderly lady. So it's a great combination. They're a great pet and owner. She doesn't even have any complaints. And she said she would hate to restrict her food or put her on a starvation diet at this age. You know, she feels like the cat is elderly. Is the cat elderly at that age, at 12 or 13?
Yes. That is a geriatric kitty. There could be a lot of things going on here. One thing that can really help is exercise. And that's really tricky with an elderly cat that size, because you're putting a lot of pressure on those joints. And she probably has arthritis anyway, because let's face it, as we humans get older, we eventually will experience that. If she's been to the vet, and if the vet has done blood work, that would be another thing I would recommend, is not just look at the cat, but go ahead and get a battery of blood work if you can afford it, because there are different things that can affect the glands, the thyroid, all kinds of things could affect it. Could be something serious. It could be something not.
If she's wanting to get her cat more active, but not cause some kind of sport injury early on, right? How can she do that? Like, you're not going to get the fishing rod toy and start, or would you maybe try catnip, or is that likely to cause injury? Like, what's the method for people who are listening who have a fat cat and they want to get it more active, but they don't want it to, hurt itself?
Well, what I would suggest is my cats, and I have a couple of fat cats, admittedly, are toys that you can drag along the ground. And, you start out and you just get them to walk and walk behind the toy. And then as they get a little more active, then you can speed it up to running. But as long as they're fat, I would never, ever encourage them to jump. But there are some toys that you can drag along the floor and they'll chase it. And that's perfect.
What about catnip? Is that a yes or a no for an old fat cat? What if the cat is not interested? I mean, in the write-up, she said that the cat is very particular about its toys, and the only toys it ever played with were the little mouse toys that actually looked like mice. If they were a different color, forget it, right? Only the ones that were authentically like a mouse. Even though this indoor cat has probably never seen an authentic, real mouse, it somehow had this preference. But then those are stuff with catnip. So perhaps it is a catnip responsive cat. Is that something that's okay for the elderly cat, or is that an avoidance thing?
Oh, catnip is wonderful anytime. It's just, it gives them a little bit of a high. It lasts for about 10, 15 minutes. It's not addictive. There's no downside to giving them catnip. However, it depends on the cat. Some cats will get the zoomies, which is wonderful and what we want. Other cats just veg out, man, and they just want to take a nap.
I understand. I've had both types. I've had the kind that finds the planter of catnip, and even though it's completely out of reach, somehow manages to get into it to fall asleep for the rest of the day.
Of course.
So there's no danger. I just want for people listening, there's no danger that your cat would get too much or that a kitten would have a problem with it. It's a really safe, natural herb, right?
It really is. And the truth is, people make catnip tea, the exact same thing, for different issues, including monthly cramps. And so this is something that people have used as medicine. It's natural. I have it growing out in my backyard. Well, I used to. It keeps getting eaten.
Oh, I wonder why. Yeah. How did that happen? It used to be used for babies as medicine. It's definitely a medicinal thing. And I think recently they've started to make dog toys out of catnip because they've figured out that dogs like it too. So,
really?
Yeah. And that doesn't surprise me because it has a similar effect on people, so it makes sense. Okay, so we're going to go to break and come back. And when we do, we're going to handle another email you got. So we'll talk about that when we come back from the break. But before we do, I just want to give you a little joke that I heard on TV on Much Music on the Comedy Network. And it was, if you find that you're outside and you want to put your cat on a leash and take it for a walk, then it's time you admit you picked the wrong pet.
That's actually pretty funny. And mostly true.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That takes me back to the Great Canadian Pet Fair, where I was like MC and host. There's thousands of people. It's down at the Plaza Nations in Vancouver. Dogs everywhere. And there's the odd person with a cat on a leash, expecting all the dogs to behave. There were even people there with a ferret on a leash, expecting dogs to behave. And I'm thinking, oh no, this is going to be, oh no, I hope the first aid people are standing by. But actually nothing happened. It was all very good.
Awesome.
Yeah, people paid attention to the fact that you were only supposed to bring well-behaved dogs, and they did. So it was a good event. But seriously, if you've got your cat on a leash, you've got prey on a leash. Wherever you take it, you got to really watch out for that cat. It's in danger. Sometimes there was, in 2010, there was Olympics came to town. And I went to the big parade and I was doing interviews, on the spot interviews of people with their dogs mostly. And in the middle of this fray, like really hundreds of people in the street, there was a guy with a cat on his head, no leash, no harness, nothing, just his pet cat hanging out on his head. And of course I interviewed him, but
of course,
not the most coherent interview I've ever done. He was definitely partying hard, but, but the cat was super chill. Anyway, okay, so we're going to go to break and come back on Animal Party Pet Life Radio. We're not saying you should do this. Most cats would much rather stay home. All right.
Don't try this at home.
Yeah. Okay. We'll be back with Dusty Rainbolt. Stay tuned.
Take a bite out of your competition. Advertise your business with an ad in Pet Life Radio podcasts and radio shows. There is no other pet-related media that is as large and reaches more pet parents and pet lovers than Pet Life Radio. With over 7 million monthly listeners, Pet Life Radio podcasts are available on all major podcast platforms. And our live radio stream goes out to over 250 million subscribers on iHeartRadio, Odyssey, TuneIn, and other streaming apps. For more information on how you can advertise on the #1 pet podcast and radio network, visit PetLifeRadio.com/advertise today.
Let's Talk Pets on PetLifeRadio.com.
Hello, we're back on Animal Party Pet Life Radio with Dusty Rainbolt. And we had a lot of questions for you, Dusty. One thing I wanted to say before we get going on that is I was really impressed by CNN this year. They gave their annual Hero Award to street vets, an organization that treats pets owned by the homeless. And Dr. Quayne Stewart was their profile person. And when he was interviewed and given the award, he described working with the homeless, and that in one case he met this man who hadn't eaten in 2 days, and a man with a dog. And so he went and bought a Subway sandwich for him and for the man, and he came back and gave him the sandwich, and the man tore off a corner of the sandwich and ate it. And then he gave the rest of his sub to his dog. And Dr. Stewart said that just changed his life. It just hit him so hard. And he's been doing this work ever since with street vets. So CNN, well done, acknowledging street vets. I want to just give a shout out for that.
That's awesome. One year I was at a veterinary conference. I think it was the one in Denver. Anyway, it was amazing because the 10,000 veterinarians, and they had a group of veterinarians that went downstairs to the basement. They have a drive-in area where you can drop off your stuff or your display or whatever. And right there was this big, long line of homeless people with their pets. And it was amazing because, they gave them shots. They checked them for injuries. They gave them antibiotics, whatever it was they needed.
Parasite treatment, all the preventative stuff that helps so much if you're living outside or
absolutely
just every pet needs. Yeah, no, it's
absolutely
amazing.
And it was just, I actually cried because some of these people, the people themselves were crying because they were helping their pets. And, they so loved their animals and they needed them. It made me so happy to see these veterinarians taking their time. And I'm sure a lot of this came out of their pockets. Taking care of them.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Well, yeah. And sometimes, there are programs locally. If you're in a situation where you need care and you can't get it, call around, because most of the time in most areas, there's somebody doing it. You may have to prove that you're of low income. You may have to prove that your pet definitely needs this. But once you prove that you're eligible, there should be cheaper spay and neuter. There should be some preventative care that you can find, maybe through the SPCA or maybe just through local vets. But there will usually be somebody doing this kind of work in your community if you can hunt it down. Okay, so we had a question for you. It's kind of a funny one. Somebody out there has an orange tabby, and it's a male, which doesn't surprise me. I think most orange tabbies are. But she wants to know, when the heck will this cat stop growing?
Well, how old is the cat?
It's just over a year, she says. But she says, it's just ridiculous. It's the biggest cat they've ever had. It's double the size of its litter mate that they also adopted. And she wants to know, the litter mate stopped growing a few months ago, around 9 months. And this one just keeps on growing.
Well, is this a long hair or a short haired cat?
I don't have a picture. I don't know.
Don't have a picture. Well, it depends on the breed. I have Turkish Vans, and they don't stop growing till they're 5. Also, Maine Coons, which are very frequently orange tabbies. They also continue to grow, but most cats stop growing by the time they're about 2 years old. They grow rapidly till 1, and then they continue to maybe grow a little bit, and then they'll put on some weight. So just like humans, they're going to expand in different directions.
Okay, so you mentioned Maine Coon. Are those, am I right in thinking those are the like among the biggest cats? Are they big, big, big?
They're big. They're big.
Yeah, okay. Like I've seen pictures where they kind of, the guy's holding it and it stretches all the way down through his whole torso. Like these are long, big cats, right?
They are. And as a matter of fact, if you look at some of the pictures on the internet, on Facebook or whatever, it looks like the pictures are altered or whatever. And some of them, no, they are just, it is the largest cat breed in the world, recognized by CFA rather. There's also the Siberian, which is big. The ragdolls are big. Again, Turkish Vans are also very large cats.
Okay, so when you say large, what do you mean? Are you like, what's a big Maine Coon? Are we talking like 25 pounds, 30 pounds, like a medium-sized dog?
I have heard of, Maine Coons get to be normally around 18 pounds, but I have seen some very much larger ones. I've never seen one 30, but I have seen one 25 pounds, and it's impressive. And it better be because, I mean, they better be gentle because you don't want to be dealing with a 25-pound cat that's not socialized. But of course,
and calm, because if it's fearful, imagine that, like getting afraid and scooting up your curtains. It would break the whole rod that would come out of the plaster. The wall would be damaged. Like that's
or your arm, or your
arm, or this guy with his cat on his head on the parade. Actually, we had a question about that. We had a question. Why does my cat like my hair? And why does my cat, different person, why does my cat sleep on my head? 2 problems I've had. So why? We want to ask you, Dusty, why do cats sleep on your head and why do they like your hair?
We have to ask a cat that. I have some thoughts, but of course, until we get to the point where we can actually communicate with them, we just have to look at the behavior and guess. And my guess would be that it's got your scent and you're covered up with a blanket so they can't get your physical scent below your head. And, they want to be near you and, they smell you, and it's fun to snuggle, because your head is round and you can curl around it. And it's a compliment, although it does make it very difficult to sleep because I have the same problem.
Yeah, okay. I think some of it is I tend to use products with lavender. I love lavender, and I know my cats love lavender. So but if I use citrus, maybe they'd be less likely to be on my head because they don't like citrus.
That's a really good observation. I agree with that. I do not use lavender because of my long hair. I have to use really intensive care things, but it has kind of a sweet, herby fragrance. So they might be attracted to that. But you're right. If you had something that was heavily perfumed or citrus or mothballs.
Lovely.
Yeah. Of course, that would chase everybody else off too.
Well, we had another question. I'm going to go to break though, because I want you to get a chance to think about it because it's a little strange. And then we'll go to break and come back. Someone asked, I just love this question. They asked, what are humans to cats? Okay, everybody, we're going to go to break and come back with Dusty Rainbow. Stay tuned.
Molly, here's your dinner. Zeus, that's not your food.
Don't let that happen to your precious cat. Elevate your cat's eating experience with the Cat Tree Tray. The Cat Tree Tray keeps your cat's food off the floor and conveniently located on the cat tree. It's the perfect way to eat. It's a beautiful wrought iron tray that easily attaches to your cat tree and keeps dogs and other critters out of your cat's dish. A must for multi-pet households. There's a 6-inch tray for large bowls and a 4-inch tray for smaller bowls. Purchase your Cat Tree Tray today. Go right now to cattreetray.com. That's cattreetray.com. cattreetray.com.
Let's talk pets.
Let's talk pets
On Pet Life Radio.
Pet Life Radio.
PetLifeRadio.com.
Hello, we're back on Animal Party Pet Life Radio. And we had a question. By the way, I wanted to mention the first question about the cat that was fat, Lucy the cat, kitty cat, was from Margaret. So I want to say that. And now someone wants to know, what do our cats think of us? What are humans to cats?
Well, again, without being able to talk to the cats, we're just guessing. But
I think we're food sources. That's like number one, maybe.
absolutely. But it's a little more complicated than that. Because I'm sorry, I was a little distracted. I have some 10-week-old foster kittens, and they are literally climbing the door to my office. She's about 6 feet high, so I hope she's okay. Because
they say cats can jump 5 times their height, but I have these 2 kittens that were born middle of September, and I watch them, and they jump way higher than that. One, like in a single leap, I'd say it's more like 8 or 9 times their height. I think your cat's fine 6 feet up on a door it can climb down on. It's fine.
Well, yeah, it's a little harder climbing down than it is climbing up. Anyway, she's good. She's good.
What goes up must come down.
Yes. Okay, but it's a little more complicated than a food source. We take cats who are basically wild animals. They're the same animals that wandered in from the deserts of Egypt, and we neuter them. So we put them in a perpetual state of kittenhood. They don't mature in the sense that a wild cat or a cat in the wild would, because you hit about 4 months and then you get the hormones and then you're breeding and then you have kittens and then you're providing for the kittens. And that might be a little bit different relationship than you adopting a kitten that's 4 months old who's already altered, and they're not going to get that. But I think we're more a mama cat, because if under normal circumstances, kitties will often milk tread on their owner's skin or clothes.
Okay,
or whatever.
so like kneading, you mean like when they take their
Yes.
paws and they go back and forth, the way they would if they were trying to get milk to come out when they're a kitten nursing.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
It's believed that the milk treading stimulates the production of milk. And so, they do that to us when they're comfortable and they're happy. So yes, we are a food source, but we're also protection. We're also just somebody good to be with. It really depends on the cat. What kind of socialization did they have when they were little? If they were raised like your foster kittens and my foster kittens, and they have a lot of stimulation and they know people aren't a problem, then that's definitely the case. But then there are some that might not have had the good experience with human beings, and they look at us as possible predators. They don't trust anybody. They don't trust anything. So that would be a slightly different relationship. That might be just food, like the feral cats. Feral cats have their caretakers, and they are a food source, but eventually it may grow into something more, something deeper.
Okay. Well, we also had some small questions like, why does my cat sleep so much? And is this normal?
Well, okay, so
cats aren't exactly productive. Let's just say they know how to chill, don't they?
They do. Gosh, I wish I could sleep that well.
So like 13 hours, he says my cat sleeps 13 to 14 hours a day. I think that's actually not that much for a cat. My cats, I believe, I'm looking at one right now, sitting in my office inbox. It's just sat down, and I believe it's already asleep. Yeah, looks like it. Breathing heavy. Eyes are half open, but they don't seem to be focused. Yeah, I think this cat will sleep 18 hours today, if I'm right. So is that normal?
Well, the average healthy cat sleeps about 16 hours a day. And the reason they can do that, everyone says they're lazy, but they're really not lazy.
They're efficient.
If they are very efficient. If you get a cat, an outside cat or a natural cat, as I like to call them, who actually has to work for his living, they are such efficient hunters and providers that they work an 8-hour day and then they can sleep the rest of the time. And I mean, you think about it.
Probably more like a night shift.
It's,
Really.
You're right. It's a night shift, you know.
Yeah.
They hunt in the evening. They hunt in the early morning, dusk and dawn. And then, you know, maybe if they didn't have such a good night, they'll hunt during the day.
So here's the thing I noticed. Like when I watch, and I have a creek and I get salmon come up the creek, and sometimes bears come to hunt, and they are terrible. They have like, they're clumsy and they miss. You can watch them try 10, 12, 15 times before they actually catch a fish, right? But my cats, they'll just switch to easier prey. You know, every kitten I've ever had tries to catch a hummingbird for a little while. It sits on the inside of the glass. Right? And the hummingbirds cover the spring, and the cat sits under it. It dives at the glass. And after a week or two, it gives up completely. And if it can get outside, it will hunt the blind, tiny vole mice, right? Like it will switch to something easy. They're very practical that way. So their hunt ratio when they're hunting blind mice is pretty high.
Well, Susan Little, who is a board certified veterinarian, and she teaches at all the veterinary conferences, she says that a cat, for every successful hunt, they actually have 9 unsuccessful hunts. So even cats have unproductive hunts.
Right.
But you're right. They are more efficient, and you know they work really hard. And a natural cat, because they do have to hide and run and jump and climb trees and leap, and that's a lot of exercise, a lot of work when they're awake. That's one of the things that makes them healthy. And it gets back to our conversation about the poor little fat cat that needs the exercise. A natural cat is going to be very, very busy when he's awake. And then when it's time to sleep, he sleeps. And that's, that's something people need to pay attention to, is cats really need a lot of activity. So when you come home from work, run them around with their feather stick or, the fishing pole or whatever, and get them to work hard for 10 minutes at a time, 2-3 times a day. And that'll do a number of things. It'll do the same thing to your little kitty that it does to the kitties
that are hunting
outside. Yeah, the natural cats. It's going to produce serotonin and endorphins. So that's going to make them happier. It's going to give them exercise. So that's good because it tones their muscles and keeps them healthy. And it also gives them mental stimulation, which if they have mental stimulation, then they're not going to get depressed. They're not going to be doing these inappropriate things or things that we think are inappropriate, like climbing the drapes and scratching the furniture and such. So that play, mimicking what they would experience outside during those 8 waking hours, is a really important thing. And getting back to our other conversations, it is also bonding, because cats know that you're the one that makes the toy work. To give you an example, when I was writing some of my books, my husband was working outside of the house. He'd come home, and one day he said, "They never pay any attention to me anymore." And I thought, oh, that's so sad. So I stopped playing with them during the day. I stopped feeding them. They had food. And, if they came over and sat in my lap, I'd pet them, but I didn't solicit anything. I didn't get the toy out. I didn't do anything. And then as soon as he got home, he would get the feather toy. It's called the Bird, best ever. And he would play with them for 10 minutes, and they would line up. We had 12 cats at that time, and they would all line up. The youngest kitten, 6 months old, to the oldest cat that was 16. And they would all wait for their chance to play with this toy. And so it eventually became such a joy, because I could tell when he was 2 blocks away, because the cats circled the door.
Oh, that's fantastic. Because they've done studies on that in England, and dogs, many, many dogs, about 80% know when their owners are coming home. But they've never done a study on cats. So that's really cool. Dusty, we have to wrap up the show. Thank you so much for joining us today on Animal Party Pet Life Radio. Dusty Rainbolt, everybody. Thank you.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Okay, everyone. From me, Deb Wolf, and Animal Party Pet Life Radio. Be good to your animals.
Let's Talk Pets, every week on demand, only on PetLifeRadio.com.